This is the Begin Within podcast, where we believe real, lasting health and fitness requires you to start inside before you work out. I'm your host, Nate Slegger, and I'm here to show you behind the scenes of fitness. You already know exercise is good for you, but what about all the other things in life that affect your fitness? If you're looking for extra motivation to get started or to make sure you keep going, this is the place for you.
Produced by BeginWithin.fit.
If you are working on getting healthier, losing weight, improving your fitness, whatever it is, but you have this feeling that you should be getting better results, you're just not sure what you might be doing wrong. Well, I want to tell you, you are not alone. And that is the very reason why I wrote my latest book, 5 Ways You're Wrecking Your Weight Loss, so that you can take a look at 5 of the most common reasons I see that people aren't getting the results that they deserve for all their hard work. Just 5 really quick fixes that can get you headed toward the results that you want. Check it out. You can download it by going to beginwithin.fit, clicking on the ebook button, or clicking on the link in the show notes. Check out my book. Let me know what you think. My guest today is Brenden Kumarasamy. He is a communications coach. He helps people to not just survive, but to thrive in environments where communication is a must, public speaking situations. And the tips that he's going to share with us are going to help us not just to be better, in front of a crowd. If that's something that you're interested in, awesome. That's just going to be a little bonus here on the Begin Within podcast. But we are going to talk about how to be better communicators in general. He's going to share some exercises and tips with us in order to do that. We are also going to talk about confidence. I know that's something that comes up for so many of us, especially in the realm of fitness and exercise. Ultimately, the thing that we are chasing is more confidence. And he's going to have some really interesting tips to share in that realm as well to help us to be more confident. Please enjoy my interview with Brenden Kumarasamy.
When I was in college in business school, I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age were like playing rugby or baseball or football or some other thing you probably wouldn't see me play, I did presentations competitively, and that's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started coaching a lot of the students, mostly for free back then, just help them do better at these competitions. So I accidentally got really good at coaching people on how to speak. And then I had the idea for the YouTube channel Master Talk because I felt that everything that I was sharing with them wasn't available for free on the internet, and here we are today.
Wow, that was very succinct, man. I'm impressed. All right, cool.
I better be succinct. My goodness, I'm the communication guy.
Like talk, man. I'm listening. I love it. So what I'd like to do, and we talked before we kind of started, is talk about communication on the one hand, and then touch on confidence, because I'm sure that's something that you deal a lot with in helping people speak, publicly and do presentations for others. Let's talk about communication first, if that's okay. Why is it such a struggle for us to communicate? Why is it something that it just seems like we're just endlessly working on, both in public and then probably in our relationships as well? What's your take on that?
Absolutely, Nate. So the answer is actually really simple if we think about it. Why do we struggle with communication? The answer lies in the education system, because that's where we learn how to communicate in a formal setting. Whether you're from Wisconsin, whether you're from, some province in Canada, whether you're anywhere in the world, the answer is the same, which is 100% of all of those presentations have 3 fundamental problems. The first one is they're all mandatory. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, Nate, you want to get breakfast and present all day?" Nobody says that. Problem number two is all of them are not things you're passionate about. It's never, "Hey, Nate, what are you excited about? Fitness, personal development." Now you got to talk about Shakespeare and poetry. Then after you're done that, you have to talk about the history of Missouri, and you're like, "But I don't live in Missouri." And so that's number two. And then number three, every presentation is tied to a punishment, Nate. So every time you don't do a great job, you don't get a high five, you get 20% less grades. And then at work, you don't get the promotion. So what's the punchline? We grew up believing that communication is a chore, so it becomes one, and nobody wants to get better at doing the dishes.
Hmm. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. It's always it becomes a drudgery to try to communicate what's going on, right? Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So, and here on the Begin Within podcast, one of the big pillars that we talk about with health is outside of calories in, calories out, blood pressure, body weight. It's about having healthy relationships. It's one of those things where we say, like, if we have a client who came in to work out as a personal trainer and their life was in shambles in terms of their relationships, that we would probably not be beating them up in the gym. We would either sit down and have a good talk with them, or we'd kick them out and say, go take care of the priorities, and then come back and see me about building muscle and burning calories. Right? It's these pillars of health that have to be in place before we can kind of address the little stuff, the weight loss, the calories, and all that. So communication is such a huge part of those connections, right? Um, what what can we do to get better at communication? That said,
Right.
what do you
As
think? What would you say?
Here's what I would say, Nate. Communication's like juggling 18 balls at the same time. That's why it's so confusing. Because one of those balls is storytelling, one of it's body language, one of it's piecing, getting rid of filler words, smiling. So instead, the better question, similar to fitness, is what are the three easiest balls that we can juggle? So in the fitness analogy, somebody might come into a gym and say, "Okay, Nate, what's my calorie intake? I want to change my diet." And we just look at them and say, "Are you walking every day?" They go, "No, why? That doesn't matter." Well, yeah, if you're not walking every day, there's no point of talking about calorie intake because
Yeah.
we're not doing that consistent exercise. Communication is copy paste, the same analogy, except now it's not walking every day, which I would still recommend, obviously, as a strategy. But for communication, it's more something like the random word exercise, where you pick a random word like computer screen, like light bulb, like mug, like paper towel, and you create random presentations out of thin air. So there's two reasons why this is effective. One, it helps you deal with uncertainty. Because at work and in our life, we don't know what people are going to ask us. We don't know what life will bring us. So if we're prepared for uncertainty, we're prepared for anything. And the second reason is if you can make sense out of nonsense, you can make sense out of anything. And that's really the magic of doing this a few times a day.
Huh. Okay, so how does it work? How does the random object exercise work? What do I
So for
do?
everyone, absolutely. So for everyone listening to this podcast, Nate's about to give me a word that he did not give me prior to this conversation. I'll demonstrate it for 60 seconds. Over to you, Nate. What's the word?
Oak leaf. Oh, I guess that's two words, but I'm staring out the window at a bunch of oak trees. So oak leaf.
It's okay. I'll take two. So let's do it. It's a breezy Sunday morning. I'm just starting to put my coat on because we're entering the fall season. I could see the different leaves falling out of the sky. The oak leaves, the regular leaves, the willow leaves. And what I always love about the fall, Nate, is this is where our environment changes. All of the different colors start to appear. We see red, we see yellow, we see green, and it's almost like your lawn or the street that you're living on, the city that you're in becomes like a rainbow where you can see the realness of the color. And that's why as I stare at that oak leaf, the only thing I think about is the following. Where is that multidimensionality in our life? Since when do we as human beings embrace the different colors of our rainbow? And I don't mean the colors of the leaf that are falling, the leaves that are falling out of the skies, right? I mean the essence of the way we spend our time. Are we just working all day? Or are we taking a breath to tell the people that we love, that we care about them? Are we spending all day at the gym and lifting weights? Are we taking a break to say, wait a second, when was the last time I saw my niece who was born last month? And when we can enjoy life as the different colors of the leaves in the world, we can enjoy a better life. So there you go. Random word exercise.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great, man. I'd give you a
Thanks,
hand for
man.
that.
I appreciate it, man.
Nice job, Brendan. So if you are, so let's just, so for myself, I want to become a better communicator, but I don't have a communication coach. How would you recommend that I can benefit from something similar? And I'll tell you this, and this is kind of maybe true of a lot of podcasters. I love to talk to myself. So could I like do this random word exercise while I'm driving in the car, just just talking to the windshield? What do you recommend?
Absolutely. So yes, 1000%. So let me give you a few tricks on how we can engrade this, but the principle is the same, Nate, which is we don't get points for doing it a lot. Sorry, we don't get points for doing it well. We get points for doing it a lot. So similar in fitness, it's not about, okay, are we doing like a million reps all the time? No, it's like, are you just doing it every day consistently over time?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
the same game with this. So what do I mean by this? Couple of easy ways if you can't afford a coach. One, do this with your kids. Okay, ingrain your children into your practice routine. That means a few things. When you're picking them to and from school, don't turn music on, just do the random word exercise. When you're having dinner with them, start with the random word. And you start, like have the kid give you one, and then you give the child one, so you're setting the example for them. That's one piece. The second piece to do this is in the shower. We all take a shower every day, hopefully. I'm praying to God. We all are. So you got 10, 15 minutes. You're not doing anything in the shower. So just look at shampoo and just do random words. That's the second way. And the third way, of course, is accountability partners. Pick a friend, join a Toastmaster is not expensive, like $100 a year or something. And just meet like-minded people. Maybe two people listen to this podcast and just team up and do the random word exercise together.
Okay, nice. So it sounds like having somebody else there is really important. Yeah,
It
I
helps.
can't
But
get
once
away with
again,
just doing it.
but to your point, it doesn't have to be a coach. That just speeds up time. That's why I'm glad you asked with that frame. But having another human being in front of you really helps. And that human being could be a kid, it could be like a mother, it could be a spouse, but having that accountability definitely accelerates results for sure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I want to go back to that the statement that you made about, and I'll mess this up. You can tell me. I'm paraphrasing.
You're all good.
You don't get points for doing it well. You get points for doing it often. You get points for repetition. Why is that so important? I'm sure there's a lot behind that as you've worked with people, but what's so important in that statement?
Absolutely. So let's simplify this. The reason it's so powerful is because think about the people in your industry. So let's say you're listening to this right now and you're an accountant. How many accountants do you know who are willing to do the random word exercise once? Oh, maybe 20%, maybe 25. What about 10 times? Okay, that number might go down to like 10%. What about 100 times? How many accountants are willing to do the random word exercise 100 times in their life, by the way? This is not like a weekly
Hmm.
thing, just in their life in general. The answer is getting really small here, Nate. And it's the same thing with fitness. Forget about the weights. How many people are willing to go to the gym every day consistently, just showing up, even if it's for 5 minutes? Like, let's
Yeah.
say they go in for 5 minutes, they leave. That number's really tiny. So, to your point, and I'm sure you talk about this a lot, consistency compounds over time. So, even if you're just doing it a little bit every day, it's staying top of mind and that it also accelerates the results you're getting because you're being mindful and intentional about mastering.
Nice. And how does uh, mastering the exercise help just in general? How does I guess I want to hear what you have to say about how it would transfer into my relationship with my wife or with my parents, with the people around me.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a couple other ones too if that helps. But the way that it does this, the biggest one is it helps you deal with uncertainty. So a lot of us, when we go into a regular conversation, just talking to people, we feel anxious, we feel nervous. Whereas if you talk about avocados, you just don't judge yourself as much anymore. You go like, oh, and by the way, this exercise scares most people when they do it the first time. They're like, what do you mean? I don't have a script. I don't have a preparation. I just have to talk about mugs. So when I did it the first time, I didn't know what I was doing either. But then over time, you get really used to it. And so when you go back to your life, it's easier for you to talk. The other piece is small talk. Small talk is the most uncertain thing you'll do in your life. You don't know what the conversation is going. You know what the questions are being asked. So you obviously can't prepare for that. So the random word exercise just helps you think on your feet a lot faster. So if you're talking to somebody, it can translate to a corny joke that you just thought of because you're just faster with your feet. And the random word exercise helps you with that. So there are just a couple of examples.
Awesome. Hmm. I can imagine that it's pretty fun to, I don't know. I'm picturing like just sitting around with, some friends or family and just goofing with it and having a drink and doing the random word exercise and seeing what people come up with in that safe environment, right?
Literally.
Cool. Let me switch gears a little bit, if that's okay. I want to hear what you have to say about confidence because I know that you're helping people to get into one of the right scariest situations that a human puts themselves into these days is public speaking. That's like the greatest fear, right? I'm sure, I've heard that before. Um, Public speaking is one of the biggest fears, and confidence is such a big part of it, I would think. What are some things that you recommend or steps that you help clients to take in order to have more confidence as they approach that type of situation?
Absolutely, Nate. So a couple of thoughts. I would say the first one that I got from Dan Henry is competence leads to confidence. So when we have more competence in a certain area, we become more confident. Example, I didn't think I'd be a communication coach. I grew up in Montreal, which is a city you need to know how to speak French. I spent my whole life presenting in a language I didn't even know, right? Because in Montreal you need to know that language, and I didn't. So I was in first, second grade. I'd look at the classroom and go, bonjour. And that was my life. Second, I have a crooked left arm. And the reason is because I had a surgery when I was younger. So I had a lot of social anxiety growing up because I had a big cast on. And you would think that a communication expert studied communication. Yeah, I got a bachelor's degree in accounting. So go figure. So where does that confidence come from? It comes from a few things. I would say the most important one though is I've just done more reps. So because like for example, the random word exercise, the reason I can speak powerfully to it, not just say a tip and run away on this podcast, is because I know how to do it well. Like I've done it 3,000 times. And that's not something that you can like not do. Like you can totally do it. Like it's just you just sit there every day and you get the reps done. But the other piece though that I feel a lot of people miss on confidence is they never take inventory of what they've already accomplished. So one thing that I get my clients to change their mind on things around communication specifically is I just ask them the simple question. What was the hardest thing you accomplished and why? And then I ask them to think about what that moment was in their life and they take time to reflect on it. And then I ask them, why was it so difficult and why did you do it anyways? And they said, "Oh, like for example, one typical response is I immigrated to this country, whether it's the U.S. or Canada, despite all the odds there was war. I did all this, that, and I was like, why did you do it? Because my family needed me, and like I get them to answer, and I go, perfect. Now, quick question: is that harder, or is doing the random word exercise in your shower 3 times a day harder? And then they go, oh, and then they just do it. So I think the reminder that I think our audience and all of us honestly need to be reminded of, I need to be reminded of this, you need to be reminded of this, is how powerful we already are.
Mm, nice. I like that. I, People are gonna like that. Thank you. Um, what I guess, and maybe you already touched on this, Brenden. When it comes to improving as a communicator and developing more confidence, what first step would you recommend? Like we're big on like tiny steps, make it easy. What's the first thing that you would recommend for someone who wants to improve?
I would say besides the random word exercise, one other thing that I would encourage your audience to do is make a list of the 3 to 5 people you love the most in your life. People are awesome to you, and it doesn't have to be your family. It could be close friends. It could be you. Like send you a video message for all the work that you're doing. It doesn't matter, and send everyone a 20-second video message, just showing them your gratitude for them. And the reason this is so powerful, Nate, is because it teaches us a very valuable lesson about communication, but also about confidence, which is what is communication for? A lot of people think communication is a chore. Oh, I got to get this done. Oh, workout. I just got to get this workout done. No, it's so much more than that. It's about creating impact, whether it's with your communication or your fitness. And communication, it's, oh my God, I've never gotten a video message before. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And on the fitness side is, no, it's not just about getting the six pack or looking healthy. It's about showing up as a role model for our families and our communities and the rippling effect of that impact. That's the bigger picture we need to get excited about. And video messages is the first step in the sport that I play, which is communication, to help us realize that we're a lot more powerful than we think.
That's awesome. I like that. I like that a lot. I heard once that we communicate to control the minds of other people, but and I think like in that antiquated definition that we started with of communication, right? That might be like I'm gonna hijack you. You got to listen to my presentation now about whatever this thing is you don't care about. But in that, updated definition, we communicate to influence other people in a positive way. We communicate to develop deeper connections with them and help them to get more out of life. That's awesome. I love it. What's
Absolutely.
a what's the best way for people to follow your work and connect
Thanks
with
so
you?
much. Of course. Thanks so much for having me on the show, Nate. This is super fun. So, two ways to keep in touch. The first one is the YouTube channel. Just go to Master Talk and you'll have access to it. And the second way is attending one of my free workshops over Zoom. So, I do a free one every 2 weeks. It's live, it's interactive, it's fun, and it's not a recorded webinar. And if you want to join that, go to rockstarcommunicator.com.
Brenden Kumarasamy, thank you so much for being here.
It was my pleasure. Thanks, Nate.
All right, such a cool interview and a fun topic for me to be able to, dive into a little bit and bring the application back, of course, to the things that we're dealing with here in terms of fitness. We're here for weight loss. We're here to improve health. We are here because we're focused on making those changes and getting results. But the bottom line is, just like we talked about in the interview, being good communicators, having meaningful connections is an important part of health. And any good doctor is going to tell you that. Any good wellness expert is going to tell you that relationships are going to play a huge role in your health and well-being. So we need to pay attention to communication. And we've talked before about being better listeners for ourselves, being better listeners for others as an important way to develop deeper connections. But also, we have the opportunity today to focus on how we can become better communicators. And I love, of course, I love Brendan's focus on reps. It's all about reps. I am such a strong believer in that. Yeah, that's what my career's been about, right? Reps, counting reps, trying to get better at movements. That's what we do in being a personal trainer. But I think the same is true when it comes to nutrition. I think the same is true when it comes to any changes that we want to make. We get experience, we get competence, we get confidence from repetitions. And so if we can find a way to increase our reps, we're going to not only become more competent, but we'll become more confident and more effective. So, such a cool exercise that he gave to us there with the random word exercise, something maybe you could try to practice. Maybe it'd be a way to, de-stress with friends and family, or maybe coworkers, the next opportunity that you have. But also that other encouragement to send a 20-second video to someone that you're grateful for and express that to them. We encourage our Academy members in the Begin Within Academy to do something very similar when it comes to developing deeper connections. Of course, a big part of being healthy people. So try one of those exercises. Commit to yourself to take some steps to get some reps in, all toward becoming a better communicator, having healthier, more meaningful connections in your life. I mean, when we boil it all down, that's our why. So many of us. That's the why behind why we're here listening to a fitness podcast, right? It's about the connections that we have with the people that we love, that we want to enjoy those more deeply. And few things can help us to do that, like becoming better communicators. Brendan's links are in the show notes waiting for you. Thank you so much once again for being here with me. I will talk to you next time here on the Begin Within podcast.